If you look out across this tropical forest at dawn, it is incredibly difficult to imagine the scale of the horror hidden just beneath the canopy. In March 2000, these quiet, rural valleys in southwestern Uganda became the center of a global media storm. Authorities had made a staggering discovery: the remains of 778 members of a secluded local religious sect. Within hours, the story broadcasted to the world was uniform and absolute. Media outlets and local officials quickly labeled the event a massive, coordinated suicide carried out by a radical doomsday cult. The prevailing narrative dictated that these individuals were willing participants, choosing to end their own lives together for their apocalyptic beliefs. The international community accepted this explanation almost instantly. The public closed the book on the tragedy, categorizing it as the dark consequence of extreme faith, without asking any deeper questions. Faced with nearly 800 bodies, the local infrastructure was completely overwhelmed. The authorities needed a fast explanation to process an otherwise unmanageable crisis. The cult suicide label offered a highly logical, understandable box. It gave the public a way to process a terrifying loss of life with minimal friction. Because the dead were presumed to be their own killers, the immediate pressure to secure a massive crime scene and launch a criminal manhunt vanished. Crucial time passed. The initial momentum required for a homicide investigation decayed, while investigators treated the site as the aftermath of a collective choice. Eventually, the timeline shifted from immediate recovery to routine processing. Medical examiners and police began the grim task of officially autopsying the victims. What they found immediately confused them. The physical state of the remains strongly contradicted the profile of a group that had quietly surrendered to death. Examiners discovered violent, localized trauma on individual victims. These were severe injuries that physically could not be self-inflicted. The supposed evidence of faith evaporated, replaced entirely by the undeniable physical evidence of extreme force. The definitive autopsy results pointed to a chilling reality. These 778 people had been systematically and intentionally murdered. This chart shows the coroner's breakdown of the 778 victims. A small fraction of undetermined cases is completely dwarfed by massive segments showing manual strangulation and deep stab wounds. Looking at these two categories reveals the terrifying intimacy of these killings, requiring direct physical contact. Moving past the data, this is the reality investigators were actually pulling from the earth. Every single body in those pits represented a violent, interpersonal struggle. If hundreds of people were killed manually, there had to be a sizable, highly coordinated group of executioners working together. The investigation officially pivoted. Detectives began the urgent task of tracking a sprawling, active network of coordinated murderers. Think about the sheer logistics involved here. To individually overpower, strangle, and stab nearly 800 people without triggering a mass panic or a large-scale escape requires strict, almost militaristic control. A slaughter of this magnitude demands precise orchestration. The perpetrators had to secure a highly controlled environment, silence their targets quickly, and deploy multiple killers working in tandem. Yet, despite the massive scale of coordination required to pull this off, investigators found an absolute void of evidence pointing to who gave the orders or committed the violence. The operation was executed so cleanly that a small army of murderers managed to leave the site and vanish without leaving a single actionable trace. To date, despite the staggering death toll, there are 0 arrests. The suspects simply dissolved into the population, blending right back into the bustling streets. The identities of the people who methodically planned and executed the slaughter of 778 men, women, and children remain completely unknown. One of the largest mass murders in human history remains unsolved. Today, the perpetrators of the slaughter are still at large, unidentified, and free.